Hello everybody and welcome to another YouTube video. So in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about how much my Ethereum mining rig makes. Now I'll also go through the specs of the rig, show you a few photos of it, talk about how I set it up in my house and some of the obstacles I faced when I did that. Then of course I'll go through the profitability, so how much it makes, how much the expenses are, so in terms of power and electricity and all of that kind of stuff. Finally, I can actually show you my Ethereum mining dashboard, and you can see all of the overclocks that I've done and the software that I use to control my rig. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started, and I will talk to you about how much this rig makes, but I do need to mention that something else that makes me money is the sponsor of this video. Before we get started, I need to thank the sponsor of this video, which is AlgoExpert. AlgoExpert is the best platform to use for preparing for your software engineering coding interviews and has the highest quality coding interview practice questions. With 160 practice questions, detailed solutions in 9 of the most popular programming languages, a feature-packed browser-based coding environment, extensive test suites, and conceptual overviews and code walkthroughs for each and every problem, AlgoExpert is the best resource to use to ace your coding interviews. AlgoExpert also has a data structures crash course, coding interview assessments, and a mock interviews feature. I can highly recommend AlgoExpert as a former customer myself and now an official instructor on the platform. Get started using AlgoExpert today by clicking the link in the description and using the code TechWithTim for a discount on the platform. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do here is just tell you a bit of a story of how I actually acquired this mining rig. So it was back in April of 2021, so about 6 months ago from today. And one of my friends approached me. He knew I had some experience with cryptocurrency and with mining in the past. And he said, hey, I'm looking into buying an Ethereum mining rig. Would you potentially want to join me? Do you want to get your own rig? Do you want to maybe split one with me? Either way, the more money we can spend, the more we can likely save because we'll get some type of bulk discount or deal or combo deal or something along those lines. Anyways, I end up saying yes. I end up figuring out that I can actually buy this in my business, which means that I can depreciate the rig, and that's really good. It means I can save probably actually a few $1,000 over the lifespan of this rig, and so I go ahead and, buy a mining rig with him. Now, what we do is we go on Kijiji, we look at the different prices of graphics cards, and originally we're planning on just building the rig ourselves. I know how to build computers. I have lots of experience doing this and building mining rigs in the past as well. In fact, quick tangent here, back at the beginning of this channel, so probably in like 2015 or 2016, this whole channel, Tech with Tim, was completely about cryptocurrency. In fact, you can probably find some old videos on this channel where I discuss cryptocurrency stuff. So anyways, just to, prove the point, I used to mine back when I was like 15, 16. And so I was kind of excited to get back into that space because while I was at university and in shared living places, I couldn't really have a mining rig. But now that I'm in my own house, it actually makes sense and I have a place where I can set it up. So anyways, we go on Kijiji. We end up realizing that it's probably just going to be better to pay someone to make the rig for us. They can go out, they can find all the cards, they can waste their time doing that. We don't have to actually go and try to acquire like all of these different graphics cards, which are really hard to find. And this guy has all the other parts. He's built, tons of rigs. He'll set up all the software for us, and the time save was just definitely worth it. So we find a guy on Kijiji. He builds rigs to order. So what we actually have to do is tell him the type of rig that we want. And he goes out and buys all the parts. And then once it's ready, he gives it to us. We verify that he's legit. And we both order a 4x3080 rig from him. So just a rig that has 4 3080 graphics cards in it. And this rig, he quotes us for $13,200. So each of us are getting one of these. So in total, our order is $26,400. This guy's completely legit. He did a really, really good job on building the rig. We go pick it up from him, bring it back home. Everything works. Everything went really smoothly. And so, yeah, we were happy we had the rig. And this is, again, like April 2021. So about 2 weeks later, we both end up actually adding to the rig. So I added a 3070 to the rig. This cost me about $1,700. And so my rig now is about 14,900 Canadian dollars. I need to specify that. Everything that I'm talking about in this video is Canadian dollars. I live kind of in like the Toronto area. So that gives you a bit of context there. Okay. Regardless, we get the rig set up, everything's working. And in terms of the setup, what I did originally was I just put it in my basement. So I have a spare room in my basement. It's pretty large. I leave the door open in there. And the reason that's an important note that the door is open is because these rigs, especially the ones with the higher end graphics cards, like the 3080s or the 3090s, generate a ton of heat, like a ridiculous amount of heat. If you go in the room where my mining rig is, and I'll show you some photos on the screen here, it's probably 4 to 5 degrees warmer than the rest of my house. Like, no joke, it's that warm. And in fact, in the kind of winter months, so I guess April, it was still a little bit cold here, it was actually kind of heating the basement for me. And I guess you could say it was maybe saving me a little bit on heat, but anyways, point being, it just is really, really hot. So that's an important consideration. Anyways, in terms of the setup, the first thing I needed to figure out was where I was going to put it. So I did that. I put it in the spare room. And then the second thing was how I was going to get internet to it. So fortunately, when I had moved into my house, and I had just moved in March, so about a month before I got this rig, I'd actually pre-ran a Cat6 cable to this room. Now, I use this Cat6 cable, or was using this Cat6 cable to run an access point. So I have an access point that I keep in the spare bedroom in my basement, and so I only had one cable going there, and it was being used on the access point. But I knew that what I could do was just run that cable into a switch, and then I could have two outputs coming out of the switch, run one to the rig, run one to the access point, and I was all good. Hence why you're going to see this kind of like really jank wiring going on if those photos are showing up on the screen right now. All right, so that was problem 2, relatively easy fix in getting internet to the rig. But then the third problem that I had was I wasn't sure if I was going to have enough power in the area that I needed it. So you might be a little bit confused by this, but the rig that I have has an 1,000 watt and 850 watt power supply in it. And under peak load, the combined usage of the two power supplies is about 1,300 watts. And so that means that I can just barely get away with having a 15 amp circuit, or using a single 15 amp circuit for this rig. So let me clarify here. In Canada, the standard circuits that are ran in your house are 15 amps, which means you can do about 1,500 watts, a little bit less than that if you don't want to have the, I guess, what do you call it, the breaker trip in your circuit panel. But I wasn't sure if what was ran to that room was a dedicated circuit or not. So if this was not a dedicated circuit, what that would mean is that there might be other outlets in my house that are sharing the same 1,500 watt maximum load. And so I might have, say, 4 outlets all using the same circuit. And so if my mining rig is plugged in and using 1,300 watts, and then I plug in something like a blender, or I plug in something like a subwoofer, that could fully trip the breaker, and well, that would be bad. You wouldn't want to do that. So I was fortunate that the outlet I had ran to that room actually was on a dedicated circuit. This was here before I moved into the house, so I wasn't sure. And so when I plugged it in, everything just worked. All was good. And I was very happy because that meant I didn't have to do custom electrical work and run a 20 amp circuit to that room, or just a dedicated circuit. Anyways, point being, that was all good. Very happy about that. Fingers crossed that everything is going to continue to work there. But then what happened one day, actually when I was live streaming, some of you may have seen this happen, is there was a power surge in my house, and one of my power supplies actually blew up. Now, it wasn't like a violent like explosion in my basement, but I heard it, and there was a capacitor that exploded inside of the power supply, and so it completely ruined that power supply. Just was not usable anymore. So I RMA'd it, ended up getting a new one, and then plugged in the new power supply, and since then it's been good. But because that happened, I was really concerned that could potentially happen again. So I went out and I bought 2 UPSs. Now, a UPS is an uninterruptible power supply. I use them pretty much everywhere in my house. I think I have like 7 or 8 of them here. And the point of having the UPS is that it's a battery backup and a surge protector for whatever you have plugged into it. So each UPS I bought was about $200. So add maybe $400 to the cost of my rig if you're including the UPSs in it. And they support 900 watts. So that's why I had to get 2 of them, because I couldn't find one that was affordable that was going to do the entire rig. Anyways, I get 2 UPSs, and the point of the UPS is that it's a surge protector and battery backup. So if the power does go out or does surge, the battery in the UPS will be able to support the rig for probably about 20 to 30 minutes, and hopefully that's enough time for the power to be restored. So anyways, that is the general setup of my rig. Again, I have it in this basement bedroom. It has lots of airflow in there. I have a bunch of fans connected to the rig too, to make sure that the cards stay nice and cool. I have all of the cards overclocked, which I'll talk about in a minute. And to summarize, I have 5 cards. I have 4 3080s, 1 3070. The other components are not super important. I have 1 1,000 watt power supply, 1 850 watt power supply. It's on a custom built frame. So the guy that we bought the rig from actually designed and built that frame for us. And then we have like a dual core processor, 4 gigabytes of RAM, some motherboard that has 6 PCI slots to support up to 6 graphics cards, and 1 random SSD, like a crappy, shitty SSD that you use to run the operating system on. So that is the setup. Hopefully that was not too long and you guys got the idea there and can see some of the photos. But now let me actually head over to my dashboard. I will show you how much money this rig has made me and then talk about some of the expenses with it. All right, so I'm actually in my HiveOS software here, or HiveOS dashboard, which I'm going to talk about now. I was going to do that later, but I figured we'd just skip to it now. So the software or the operating system that I use on my mining rig is called HiveOS. This is free, and what this allows you to do is actually control all of your rigs remotely from the web. So right now I'm just on a website. It's called HiveOS. Okay, I've signed into my account, and you can see here that I have one mining rig. It's called 4x RTX 3080. It actually has 5 GPUs, as you can see up top here. But originally, before I added the other GPU, I called it this, and I just didn't change the name. Point being, though, you can see we're hashing at about 449.3 mega hashes per second. I have about almost 1,300 watts being used, so 1.277 kilowatts, so that's about 1,300 watts. And you can see the price per day in electricity is about $3.12 US. So the figures you're going to see here are US, but all of the figures I discussed previously were Canadian. It's annoying in Canada, we use Canadian dollars, and then everything shows up in US, but you get the idea. So there you go. You can read through this. I have 5 GPUs. This is my actual rig, and this is called a worker. So if I click into this worker here, you can see we have all of the graphics cards. It shows what all of the cards are hashing at. So my 3080s are going at about 96, and my 3070 is going at about 61. Now, if you're curious, you can see what the fan speed and all of the overclocks are. So we actually undervolt the core clock by -225, overclock the memory clock to 1800, and then the power limit is set at 230 watts for each 3080 and 130 for the 3070. Now, you can also look at the load average of the physical computer itself. So how much free space, the free RAM, all of that kind of stuff, not super important. But yes, this is the rig. Now, I'm mining using something called the HiveON pool. Now, that is not super important, but you can see my effective hash rate is 449.3, or sorry, not effective, average hash rate is 449.3, and my effective hash rate is whatever is here, and that will be changing as, random things happen with the network. Okay, so that's kind of the basics. I mean, there's not much more to go through here. I could do a whole video on the software. But you can see there's all kinds of controls up here. Like I can change the fans. I have this hash rate watchdog, which means if the hash rate goes below a certain number, it will actually restart the computer for me. I can remote access. I can look at power options. So I could, reboot, shut down, whatever. All this kind of stuff. Not super important, not the point of the video, but there you go. Okay, so that is that. Now let's go and look at my profitability here, which I think I can do by clicking on HiveON pool. All right, so I'm here on my HiveON dashboard. This is where it actually shows how much money the rig has made. Now you can see here right away, if we look at the numbers, about 30 bucks a day, about 215 US dollars a week. And so far I have been paid about 7,200 US dollars. Now, of course, you want to convert this to Canadian dollars to compare against the prices I gave you before, but I do need to mention that these numbers are highly dependent on the price of Ethereum. In fact, you should really probably only look at how much Ethereum I've made because Ethereum price changes all the time. And so this number here tomorrow could be a lot more. It could be a lot less. So really, you just want to look at the amount of Ethereum, which is almost 2 Ethereum, about 1.9 Ethereum. And this, again, is in a time frame of about 6 months, okay? So that should give you an idea. Now, I will say that I've seen this number, so for the daily earnings, be about 50 US dollars. That's the highest I've seen it. And the lowest I've seen it has been probably 17, 18 bucks. Now, in all of these numbers, you do need to factor in the price of electricity, which is $3.12 US. That's what it's approximating it at. It's probably a little bit higher than that because where I am, electricity is pretty expensive, but that is kind of the idea. So really, not much more I can say than that. I will leave you by mentioning that you might be thinking that I'm losing money right now. You might be looking at this and saying, okay, you've made about, let's say 9,500 Canadian dollars. If you do the exchange rate, maybe a bit less than that. You paid about $15,500 if you factor in the UPSs. And so you are down right now about 6,000 Canadian dollars. Okay, if you're looking at it only in that sense, yes, I guess I would be down $6,000, but you have to remember that my Ethereum mining rig is still worth something. So even though I paid for it $15,000. Right now, if I were to sell it, I could probably sell it for about $13,000 or $14,000. And so all I actually have to do whenever I am mining Ethereum and I have that rig is I have to make the difference in depreciation. That's all I have to do. And if you want to factor in inflation as well, you can do that. But the point is that if I simply beat the depreciation of my mining rig, then I'm going to be generating some type of profit because the mining rig still has value and I can always sell it if I want to. Now, I'm not planning on selling the mining rig. I would really like to, break even by making that amount of Ethereum. But the point is that this is a very safe investment because of that. Let's say Ethereum tanks in value and all of a sudden this is worth nothing. Okay, that's fine. I'll just go sell my mining rig. I'll probably still make money because Ethereum's probably not going to be to the point where 1.9 Ethereum is worth less than, 2,000 Canadian dollars. That would be pretty ridiculous. And so hopefully that gives you kind of an idea of the business strategy here. I'm pretty well guaranteed to just kind of win so long as I can continue mining Ethereum and the value of Ethereum is not going to tank to literally nothing. All right. So with that said, that's pretty much everything I had for this video. I don't really make cryptocurrency videos very often anymore. I used to do them all the time. But if you guys like this type of content, please do let me know by leaving a like, leave a comment in the description, and maybe I will make some more in the future. With that said, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I will see you in another one.